the 1958 Gilbert State football players under whom my father coached. Gilbert alumni, faculty, students, community residents, all who signed petitions to rename this field the James E. Thompson Athletic Field. I thank you from the bottom of my heart for your timeless efforts to make this day possible. I know my dad will be enormously proud. He loved Gilbert.
Yes, he did.
And on this day too, I want to present him with an invisible trophy as the world's greatest dad, because that he was. I stayed with my father for many of my adult years until he died. Before he went to hospice, he told me, "Diedra, drive me around Gilbert and the east side for one last time." To give you a recap of his life, of my life as a child with him, my teenage years, and my adult life, he was born right here on the east side in 1924. His father, Earl Thompson and Ruth Thompson. Earl was a pharmacist and Ruth taught school. I believe it was Baldwin Haven School. He was the fourth of 8 children. He had a sister, Estelle, which is my middle name, who died during her teens. And I remember my grandparents had a picture of each child on a mantle, from Lillian till Mildred, from the oldest to the youngest. And I remember seeing that as a child. He graduated from Stanton High School in 1941. I believe Stanton was the only high school for blacks to attend at that time. After graduating from high school, he went to the Army and served in World War II. My dad told me that while he was in the Army, they put black soldiers at the bottom of the ship where the torpedoes were first to hit. He told me he promised God when that ship touched land that he would never get on a boat again. That was a terrifying experience. He eventually went on a cruise, but that was many, many years later. After the Army, my father enrolled at FAMC College, or Florida A&M University, and he played quarterback. I had an Aunt Mildred, who's deceased, saying when he was in school, he loved football. Football was his life. Also, while at college, he met my mother, Edith Lucky, and they married in 1948 and had 2 children, James E. Thompson II, who is deceased, and me, Diedra Thompson Gordon. After graduating from college, my father began his educational career in 1947 as athletic director and football coach here at Matthew W. Gilbert, at the time, high school. Being a coach was my father's passion, and he loved being a coach. In fact, I think he would have continued being a coach, but he loved my mother, Dee Dee Moore. They called her Dee Dee. She encouraged him to pursue his master's degree so that he could spend more time with the family. I was told the day I was born, which was like Thanksgiving, he couldn't come to the hospital because he was coaching a game. You see, for those of you who did not know, there were two high schools in Jacksonville, Gilbert and Stanton. And on Thanksgiving night, there was the biggest rivalry in town.
Always.
I remember I was a little girl, but I remember my father singing this jingle. Gilbert beats Stanton, alley-o-way. In 1958, he became assistant principal the same year that the football team became state champions. In 1958, I was 5 years old. And when I was preparing this speech, I was amazed to recall what happened during my life when I was 5. Being this is Black History Month, for the younger audience, Jacksonville in 1958 had Jim Crow laws. There were white and colored bathrooms, white and colored water fountains, segregated schools, movie theaters, beaches, and restaurants. It was a way of life for blacks in Jacksonville. My father, however, strived to have a loving family environment. I grew up in College Gardens, and I see Dottie, and I see Miss Parsons. It was the most loving environment that all the families knew each other and were friends. On Christmas morning, we would ride our new bikes and skate in the neighborhood. We did everything together as a family. We went to the movies. We could only go to the Ritz and the Strand.
That's right.
We went to the beach. We could only go to Little Tablet Island and American Beach.
That's right. That's right.
I remember going to Maycoins, Furchgood's, and Purcell's. Blacks could only eat at the stand-up counter in Woolworth store.
That's right.
To get a hot dog.
That's right.
And I believe it was Strand. I mean, the Grants.
Grants
Was the only way we could eat. I remember going with my dad downtown to Furchgood's, and the only blacks that were working there were the elevator.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
Now, it was interesting how much I recalled as a young age, but I remember one day the president of the NAACP, I think his name was Rutledge Pierce.
Yeah, Rutledge.
Said, Mr. Thompson, I want all, at that time, colored people to boycott. We're not going to shop downtown until they hire more black people. And my father said, amen. And as a result of that, more blacks were hired in positions downtown. As a teenager, I learned how to play bridge, and I played tournament bridge. We played bridge as a family. We bowled together. We played Scrabble together. And I remember I would be so embarrassed because my father would take me to parties. He was often nodding at the steering wheel. He would pick me up. He didn't care how late. He said no teenager would drive his car at night. So he was that kind of person. In 1978 was a monumental year for both me and my dad. It was the year that I got married to my husband, Robert Gordon, and 3 months after my wedding, my mother had a brain aneurysm and died. It was very devastational to my father, my mother's death. He also retired shortly after her death, which brought another kind of slow call and that he had to deal with. My brother's death in 1996 was also devastational. However, in 1996, he was inducted into the FAMU Hall of Fame, and that made him enormously proud.
Yes. Yes.
On February the 11th, 2000, my dad died of cancer, and I can say he had a life well lived. In remembering him, he often spoke in a loud voice. He could never meet a stranger. He would walk into a room and say, "My name is Jimmy Thompson." And he's taught me how to grab a hand and shake it and look somebody straight in the eye.
That's right.
I also remember when I was 5 and I was riding the bicycle, he taught me to ride without training wheels. I fell down and cut my knee, and it bled. And I turned to him and I said, "Daddy, I can't do this." And he looked at me and he said, "There's no such word as can't. You can do it. You come from good stock.
That's right.
And
That's right.
thoroughbreds do not cry." So, to all the athletes who participate in this track, I want to say to you, strive for excellence, as my father did, as quarterback, as coach, as assistant principal and principal. Also, carry on the motto, there's no such thing as can't. You can do it. And all of you athletes, you come from good stock because the spark of God burns brightly in you. To all of you, thank you for this tremendous honor in my Father's name, and God bless each of you.
Very good.